How's it going, everyone? We've got a lengthy new video showcasing Ghosts of Yote and one of the best elements of the game, and it is the landscapes and the world of the game. Yes, it is a 10-minute video that is totally centered around showcasing the environments, but you know what? I am totally on board with that. That's going to be one of the most compelling aspects of this game, and we'll talk about that. On top of that, a bit of an update on Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater and how that game is performing, selling fairly well, all things considered, given it's a remake of a PS2 era game, given that it's $70 and it is, you know, a 15-hour game. I feel like it's doing fairly well. First of all, as I mentioned, Sucker Punch and Sony Interactive Entertainment have released a 10-minute video for Ghost of Yote called Journey Through the Edge of Japan, which showcases the landscape of Etso, and it's all set to an extended version of the original track, The North. Again, this is all about the scenery, the environments of the game, which I think look absolutely fantastic. Every time I talk about Ghosts of Yote, and we did a video on it that went up yesterday, the comment section is just an absolute crap show. It is people so divisive, some people that are super excited for the game, and then other people crapping on it. Somebody called me like something very hurtful in the video because somebody, honestly, like, I read the comment sections a little bit. Somebody called me something that I'm like, oh, that's a little uncalled for, because I thought Jin could have another game. And then, you know, the best comment that I saw in yesterday's Yote video that we did was somebody saying that Tsushima was a big part of, you know, the early years of the lockdown, or the early moments of the lockdown, because if you remember, Tsushima came out in August of 2020. It was actually supposed to come out in July, but then it got pushed back into August. I want to say I got my release windows right, that it was initially scheduled for August. Last of Us Part 2, I believe, was scheduled for May, then it got pushed into June, but I remember in like a 2-month period, we got Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, and I remember in those early days, like when the news broke about, you know, the big narrative element of Last of Us Part 2, everybody that I knew was at home, and we all got on our Discords, we found like a leaked video of that, and everybody was just so upset by that. And then a couple months later, Tsushima came out, and Tsushima just blew me away. But I love that comment for whoever did put that. And for me, that's the thing with Yote. You can be a little bit skeptical for whatever reason about the game, but has Sucker Punch really given you a reason? Them as a studio, them putting out the games that they've put out, have they given you a reason to be skeptical at this stage of the game? With every high quality game that they've put out, it has literally been like 2 decades. That's not hyperbole. 2 decades of back-to-back-to-back-to-back incredible games. And incredible, you know, that's a subjective term in terms of how you want to view Sly Cooper 1 through 3, how you want to view Infamous 1 and 2, how you want to view Ghost of Tsushima. But to me, they've put out incredible game after incredible game, and while they have yet to break that 90 barrier as far as Metacritic score goes, I think Ghost of Tsushima should have been above a 90. I think Infamous 1 should have been above a 90, and certainly a couple of the Sly Cooper games should have been above a 90, but I digress. I'm incredibly excited about Yote, and I feel like this 10-minute video really sets the tone for the world that you're gonna be exploring. And with Yote, I don't think you're gonna experience this overwhelming world with a lot of content in the sense of meaningless content. I think this world was very meticulously crafted in the sense of giving you meaningful content and putting a lot of attention to detail in that world. And when you're putting out a 10-minute video, yeah, you're probably pretty confident about that as well. I will say this, I know some people are a little bit skeptical on the narrative, and yes, the narrative backdrop does sound incredibly generic. Oh, another revenge story, and I think some of that is the fact that we just got Assassin's Creed Shadows, and, you know, the revenge story in this setting, it's very, very typical. Like, that's usually what you go for, but a lot of stories are fairly generic. What matters is the execution of this story. We'll see how they execute on Yote's story, and that's what I'm curious about more than anything. Remember that the preloads will be going live on September the 25th. The game will be 85 gigabytes. Review copies are already out, and the reviews will be up on September the 25th. So they're giving reviewers ample time to play the game, and on top of that, the reviews are going up a week before the game comes out. So to me, that sounds like like they're incredibly confident with the game. You know, PlayStation published a game called Lost Soul Aside recently, and they didn't even send out review copies of those games, and I liked Lost Soul Aside more than most people, but yeah, you can kind of gauge at the confidence level that PlayStation has with their games based on them sending out review copies. You want to know another game they didn't send out a review copy of? Spider-Man 2 on PC, and guess how Spider-Man 2 on PC turned out? It was absolutely disaster, and if I remember correctly, they didn't send out review copies of Last of Us Part 1 on PC either, and that was disastrous as well. Sony knows what they're doing as far as when they decide to send out review copies and when they don't. You know, they kind of see how these games are turning out, at least from my vantage point. Alright, moving on from that, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater shipments and digital sales have topped 1 million units sold on the first day of release. Now, that first day is interesting because this game did have the early access gimmick where if you bought the digital deluxe edition, you got the game like 48 hours in advance, so it counts that time period as well. 1 million copies sold for Delta Snake Eater, I think is pretty damn good. Remember that this game, I think a lot of people realize the fact that it is a game that is 15 hours long, it is $70, and I saw a lot of people just being like, you know, I'm interested in this game, but I don't want to pick it up at the $70 price point. So actually, I look at the 1 million copies sold here, and I think it's pretty darn good. I also think this is a game that over the course of the year and over the next 16 months as it goes on sale, it'll sell a lot more copies. I think people are going to have that interest in it. It's, again, a 15-hour game for $70 is just going to be a little bit of a hard sell, but I think 1 million copies for a remake of a PS2 game, that's pretty darn good. I am really curious on where Metal Gear goes from here, because I think much like Silent Hill and how Konami has treated that, I think Metal Gear is a franchise that is gonna stick around, but I'm curious, is it gonna be a case of, okay, we'll do remakes and remakes and remakes, but what does that mean for the long-term outlook of the franchise? Are we gonna get to a point where a new mainline Metal Gear game is greenlit for development? And I know a lot of people would be very skeptical on that based on the fact that Hideo Kojima would not be involved, but they have this IP at their disposal. It seems like Konami wants to utilize it, and to me, Delta Snake Eater was released as a bit of a litmus test on what is the interest level of Metal Gear as an IP. Well, I think the interest level is pretty damn high on Metal Gear as an IP, and I think if you did a real mainline new entry, whether that be Metal Gear Solid 6, you know what I think there would be a lot of interest in? A Metal Gear Rising Revengeance 2. I think if you did a Rising 2, I think people would be very interested, and I think there's, you know, games that you could do. However, I think there will be an inherent level of skepticism with a Metal Gear game without Kojima's involvement. For now, doing remakes make a lot of sense. Doing a Delta Snake Eater, then going back and remaking Metal Gear Solid 1, or even the original Metal Gear, if you can figure that out. I think there's a lot of potential in that, but for the long-term outlook of the franchise, I am curious if they are gonna do a new Metal Gear game, and there was the talk of Konami establishing a new group of people to work on the future of the Metal Gear franchise. Well, what does that really mean? Does that mean Metal Gear Survive 2? You know, nobody trying to really get that, but Metal Gear Solid 1 remake, you know, and a new Metal Gear title, I would be interested in. I would be obviously skeptical, and I think a lot of people would be skeptical, but you know, I think they did a great job with Delta Snake Eater. But the thing with Delta Snake Eater is you had the narrative in place. You had that element in place. If you're talking about a new narrative being created, that's where I think the skepticism would bring in. But at the very least, Delta Snake Eater has done very well, so we'll see where it goes from here. I would personally say, as somebody that's beaten the game and had a great time with it, for the majority of people, I would wait on a sale for this game, just on the basis that I know how Konami games work. Konami games generally go on sale fairly quickly. I think come November, Black Friday time, you'll be picking this game up for $40, and I think at $40 it would be a great buy. But that's my 2 cents on that. That'll do it for me. Again, Ghost of Yote getting a lengthy 10-minute video showcasing the environments and the world of the game. I think that video in general is like a fairly relaxing video. Like if you have like a dual monitor setup and you're working on one monitor and you just have that video on your second monitor. I think that that's a pretty cool setup, and it's actually a pretty relaxing ambient kind of video that I would recommend you to watch. And Delta Snake Eater has cracked 1 million copies sold and shipped. So remember that while they say that's one day, it did have the early access gimmick, so bear that in mind. That'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.